Let's expand the region 4, maintaining state. I have overwritten the methods onSaveInstantState and onRestoreInstantState. Both of the methods receive a bundle object as their parameter. This bundle is just a key value data structure. First, for saving the state, I just need to keep track of the scores. Scores are simply integers, so I use the method putInt. I store the integer value of player score for the key player_score, and the same thing with CPU score. Notice here I've called the base classes method after manipulating the bundle. So this method basically receives the bundle, adds two other things to it, and then passes it to the base class. That bundle object from SaveInstant would be passed on to the onRestoreInstant state at some other point. This time, I just get those integers back using the same keys I used before in saving the state. In addition, the text views that show the scores need to be updated as well. Let's check our code using the emulator. Everything seems good, and this wraps up my part about the activity lifecycle. Poulad is now going to present the next part.
In this section, I will be talking about the implicit intents. In our application, when user clicks on the player's image, he can take a picture using the camera application. The picture will be set as the player's image. Since I'm running the application inside an Android virtual device, I see an emulated camera, but it'll be just like a normal camera on any actual device. We can achieve that feature in an Android app using intents. We use intents to open components. I used an implicit intent in this case. Implicit intent requests an action to be performed. The request, capturing an image in this case, is sent to the Android OS. The Android OS redirects that request to an installed application, for example, camera application. If user takes a picture, an intent containing image's thumbnail would be passed back to Android OS and then to our activity. Android OS fortunately handles these all for us, and we only need to use two methods in our activity. For sending the request, we need to create an intent object and pass it to the method startActivityForResult. Eventually, the activity from camera application would be started, and the result of capturing the image would be sent back to our activity. Method onActivityResult is where we receive the result. Let's have a look at the code. I expand the region 5 sending a request. I have hooked up a lambda expression to the click event handler of the player's image. When user clicks on that image view, an intent is created. Notice that the argument I have passed to its constructor is a simple constant string, and here you can see its value. This string defines the action. Then I call the method startActivityForResult and pass it that intent object. I'll talk about this 0 here in a few seconds. In the other region for implicit intents, I have overwritten onActivityResult method. This method is called whenever the Android OS passes back the results of an action we requested to be performed. The request code parameter in this method corresponds to this 0 here. Android applications are usually more complex than this example. The results of all the intents we send come here in different states, different times. Having a request code helps us to keep track of our intents. Therefore, we say request code number 0 is for the player's image. In the method, using a simple if statement, I check if the request code was 0 and the result of the action was OK. I use this statement to extract a thumbnail of the captured image as a bitmap object. Then I set the player's image to that bitmap. In the next part of this tutorial, we are going to enhance the layout.
The app's implementation is done. In this part, I'll try to enhance our design. First thing I'm going to talk about is weight. The weight of a view element specifies its importance in terms of how much space it should take. Look for the weight attribute for these buttons. The attribute weight sum is for the parent, in this case the linear layout. Each child element has its layout weight, and the sum of them should be equal to the weight sum of the parent. The other attribute is gravity. Here is a vertical linear layout that contains a button. When we set the gravity to center vertical, the content inside the layout is centered vertically. The layout gravity changes the gravity of the element inside its parent. As you can see, here we have a vertical linear layout with a button inside. By setting the layout gravity to right, the button tries to put itself on the right side of its parent. I encourage you to change the gravity and weight of the elements in the game's layout to understand their behavior better. Click on this button to be able to select the containers or layouts. Select the root layout that contains everything else and change the weight sum to 100. Now set the layout weight for its children. I give 20% to the layout on top, 20% to the bottom layout, and 60% to the layout in the middle. There are two layouts in the middle. I changed their gravity attribute so the elements inside them will be centered. Here I set the weight of 1 for both layouts inside the top layout. Notice that I didn't specify a weight sum of 2 for their parent. Fortunately, the Android OS is smart enough to understand that the sum should be 2. The text views look better with their content centered. Lastly, I don't like to see the buttons stretched, so I set their height to wrap content. And this concludes my part. Pulat will be presenting next.
Alright, here come your assignments. Now it's your turn to work on this project. Write 2 lambdas for reset and close buttons to do the specified tasks. When the user rotates the screen, the CPU's choice is lost. Keep track of that using the lifecycle methods. For the sake of this tutorial, we decided to design a simple layout that gives us a better control on the attributes we wanted to introduce. You can change the layout or redesign it based on your own ideas. For example, I have added another text view here that shows the result of each round of the game. Keep in mind that you also have to update the text based on the events that happen. I will send you the way I solved these in a few days. There are a lot more about Android OS to cover, but we hope we have helped you to understand some of the fundamentals. Alright, this is the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching and happy coding.